Alright guys, welcome back to another video. So, I decided to dabble through some of the discourse surrounding Battlefield 6 and Season 3 and what essentially they have planned going forward for this game. Now, some of the graphics on screen are coming from a leaker named Temporal, and apparently he's been really accurate with some of his leaks. Now, this is a really interesting reveal. So far, we know going forward with Season 3, we can expect 2 map remakes. These are Golmud Railway and Propaganda. These aren't necessarily the best, most iconic or demanded maps. I'm not really sure who asked for these maps. You could see why they decided to remake Golmud. It's genuinely an easy map to recreate. You're talking about just a large dust bowl area, wide open valley. There's not much going on visually with the map itself. It's very easy on the eyes. There's not too many assets on screen. It's largely just massive open terrain. But there's a few unique things about this map that brought the experience to life, and that was essentially the vehicle play on this map. Essentially, the vehicles were doing all the heavy lifting. So you had a map big enough to cater to the entire sandbox. So every vehicle in the sandbox had a spot right here. Helicopters, jets, tanks, LAVs, you name it. I also outlined that there was a capture point central to the map, which was actually mobile. It was a train which would move from one end to the other. And that was a really unique dynamic feature right there. The other issue is also with the fucking cut. Sorry guys, I'm driving. And yeah, you get some people on the road who are just idiots. Yeah, so the other problem is that the vehicle sandbox in BF6 isn't very good, okay? Some of the vehicles are just practically garbage. You're talking about the attack chopper. The gunner seat doesn't really have the same capacity as it once did. Nothing about the vehicles feel right in this game. The little bird feels really awkward. It feels really heavy, hard to control. I'm pretty sure there was also an AC-130 on this map. I could be wrong on that. I don't think there was one actually. I think there was, but it was only through the commander mode. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure there was access to an AC-130 on Golmud Railway, which would provide some much needed drone support. And that was provided through the commander mode, which again, you do not have in BF6. So again, there's various elements that I'm going to predict they're just going to safely ignore. And that would just provide such a stale experience. Just the map, it's dependent on vehicle gameplay. If you can't provide improvements to the vehicles in this game, then you're not going to deliver the best experience. That's just logical common sense right there. Again, I don't know who asked for this map. BF6 is desperate for large-scale maps at this point. 98% of the game is CQC infantry-focused maps. That's just dog shit. You need to have some open environments in this game. It's not a Battlefield title without open large-scale maps. So now I have actually taken a look, gone back in hindsight, at the time of making this video, I decided to actually take a look at some of the leaked gameplay footage of Golmud Railway. I'm assuming you've seen the comparison graph, basically comparing the BF6 remake to BF4's Golmud, and essentially how they've reduced the scale of that map. Now to that I'd say just completely ignore this graph. You can't tell what the fuck's going on. It's a really silly graph. I'm not sure what they're you can't really tell what the fuck you're looking at, to be honest. So I'd say ignore all that, and we're gonna do it properly here. So what I've actually done here is I've overlaid the remake onto the original map, so you can see just how much they've actually shaved off. Now, looking at this from here, it does appear that there isn't much of a substantial difference in terms of what they've actually shaved off in comparison. Now, this was one of my core complaints with BF6, is that most of the maps were pretty much unfairly, well, for some reason the developers keep heavily gating these maps into these kill boundaries. So essentially, this is a massive problem, especially when you're playing Rush or Breakthrough. You are constantly bumping into these kill boundaries, especially when you push through the sector. You've only got a bunch of seconds to push through to the next section of the map, and it's completely ludicrous. This heavy reliance on these kill boundaries to shepherd the player forward constantly is a problem. Now, in terms of Goldmud, it only seems to affect, in my opinion, the G and F flag, if I remember correctly. That's pretty much where you're going to have an issue here. Okay, you can see just how big the tank is in comparison to the warehouse. On the right side of the warehouse, we have the G flag, and that's essentially where you have a bunch of houses. Now, there's not much breathing room for the tank to flank around the G flag. I have no idea what the fuck they're thinking, but I'm expecting that to be a point where you're going to run into kill boundaries, and it's just not fun. I don't know why they keep doing this. It's as if they're not properly testing out these maps. And this is the other question I have, is why are they reducing the scale anyway? What is the actual purpose of doing that? Is it because they want to improve performance with this game somehow? I have no idea. That was the only logical take I can think of, but they do seem to be constantly shrinking maps in terms of remakes. We saw this with Firestorm. They made that map smaller, and they made the mountainous area slightly steeper and taller. Fuck knows why they did that. Now, again, with this Golmud remake, it does appear that they've added more structures, more assets onto the map, and this was completely unnecessary. I have no idea why they did this. This particular zone right here, they've added a vertical structure here, and it's basically a kind of a building under construction, basically. And what this does is it's now added verticality to the map. And in this particular zone, you can see completely straight to the warehouse and all the capture points behind it. And this asset right here, from what I'm aware of, is actually recycled from another map. I can't remember the name of that map right now. And you cannot destroy this asset, so it's a static asset that you've just... what they've done now is added a permanent vertical structure to the map, and it's just a PowerPoint at this point. So I do not understand why they've done that. It's completely baffling. You've actually negatively impacted gameplay at this point, and you've just basically fucked the map. Now, according to Danny on PC, the M16A3, which you can see here, isn't actually the M16A3. It's actually the A4 version, which means it's essentially a burst rifle, like it was in BF4. Now, that being said, you can add an attachment on there to make it a automatic rifle. Personally, I'm not really too interested in this rifle. Yeah, look, it's a great weapon. It was really fun in BF3. I'm not denying that. It's an iconic weapon. However, I would have much preferred if they just go ahead and put the M416 into this game. That's the only weapon I'm interested in at this point. That was my go-to assault rifle, the M416. You know, I would take that any day over the M16A3. Fuck knows what they're doing. The M416, yeah, you can use that in close range to long range. I see that kind of as an all-purpose rifle. The M16A3, medium to long range, I wouldn't really use that in close range. Again, the gun meta in this game isn't exactly in the same arena as BF3 and BF4. But again, in terms of the M16A3, it does appear to me that they've just recycled animations for the M4A1 carbine. It's exactly the same animations, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm not gonna cuss them out over that. You need to save some time here and there on development. But yeah, to me, it looks exactly like the M4A1 in terms of animations. Again, that's not a bad thing, but we're more interested in how the weapon plays, and it doesn't, to me. Again, I'm more interested in the M416 than the M16A3 at this point. So yeah, that was one of my go-to weapons in BF3, BF4. I'll take that any day of the week. But yeah, again, now these map remakes, I haven't seen anything about propaganda so far. With these map remakes, it does appear that we're still on the same sort of wavelength of just releasing 2 to 3 maps per month. That's what you can expect going forward. I don't expect them to release all these maps, these 4 maps, including Isolated, whatever the fuck that is, on top of Goldmud and Propaganda, and then Grand Bazaar. I'm just not expecting them to release all of those during the next Season 3. It would be great if they could, but realistically speaking, I know that these people just do not have it, and it takes them forever to do simple stuff. But yeah. Yeah, the other piece of content coming into BF6 this is speculation. We don't actually know if this is coming. This map is Propaganda. Again, another remake. And again, another infantry-focused map. I'm not too sure, again, who keeps asking for this piece of content right here, but the game needs large open maps. Again, I did speak about the focus on these dynamic elements in BF4 in both of these maps, and I do not have the confidence in this development team to integrate these in these map remakes. No, I think they're actually going to conveniently destroy half of the map as an excuse to avoid integrating these elements into the map. That said, it's a great rush map. I really enjoyed it. Not so much with Conquest, actually. It's one of those maps where you'll find infantry just scattering off in their own skirmishes, and the battlefield itself just feels really disconnected in terms of Conquest. On Rush, though, it's a great map. You're advancing through the map sector by sector, and narratively it just works. It just feels like a great map. Again, lots of opportunity here to integrate some of that BF6 destruction into this map. I'm not too sure there was much destruction around the urban high-rise residential buildings in the original BF4. Most of that destruction was exclusive to the right side of the map beyond the train, and yeah, there wasn't really much in terms of levolution or real destruction on this map. And again, that's something BF6 could capitalize on right there. Going into Season 3, these are some additional leaks by Temporal. Now, there's a map called Plaza, and this is said to be inspired by Grand Bazaar. So it's rumored that they could be remaking Grand Bazaar into BF6, and I'm absolutely worried about this one map. Now, Grand Bazaar was a really fun map back in the day. I really enjoyed this map. Again, I'm a Rush player going back. This map played great in Rush. It's another infantry-focused map, yes. There's lots of dynamic engagements here. Think of this map as one big square. Vehicles would navigate around the map, around the perimeter of the map, and much of that infantry combat was central to the map with its alleyways. That was where the Grand Bazaar was. Dense market areas, close building clusters, lots of alleyways, and that was predominantly where most of the infantry combat actually was. And around that was where your infantries were converging into this one CQC environment. And again, that was where most of the vehicles would patrol, and essentially infantry would just be scourging into these alleyways. And it was a really interesting map. I really enjoyed it. That said, I don't think it's neatly going to fit into BF6. This is a completely different game. The destruction tech doesn't work the same. Okay, there's just something about BF6's destruction tech that just does not feel as clean as it once did in BF3. In BF3, you can RPG or use a grenade launcher to chip away at these building blocks, and these huge pieces of the building would come down and collapse over the infantry, and you'd get a nice bunch of kills right there. In BF6, however, it's not always the case. I mean, yes, you can blow up pieces of building and take out some of the infantry with that, but it's just not as clean as BF3 was. And that just, it's very messy in BF6, and what that does is it just complicates the firefight, and this map could work in BF6. I'm not saying it can't work. It's an infantry-focused map. This is what BF6 capitalizes on. This is the high-octane push that they're going for. That being said, it's completely tone-deaf to ignore the fact that this game already has a large amount of infantry-focused maps. But like I said, the game desperately needs large open maps. Caspian Border, Gulf of Oman, Tehran Highway, Siege of Shanghai, Sign Crossing. There is a decently large amount of maps to choose from, which cater to that combined arms open warfare that we could desperately use in this game. Like, it's completely baffling to me why they would want to remake Grand Bazaar. That said, again, very interesting map. I had a ton of fun with this map. Do I think it is the right fit for BF6? Definitely not. You're talking about, if you look at Siege of Cairo, I'm expecting it to play similar to that map, just in terms of the infantry chaos that you'll find central to Grand Bazaar. Only difference here is that the shape of this map, think of it again as one big square with vehicles patrolling the perimeter of the map itself. And then again, most of that infantry combat is central to the map, and it will just play out like Siege of Cairo. We already have maps similar to Grand Bazaar in this game already. We don't need to waste time and resources building this map. It's just tone deaf. It's not a Battlefield title without open large-scale maps. You know, this is the other thing that's really pissing me off, is because you've got a host of YouTubers on this platform asking for CQC infantry-focused maps, and it's absolutely tone deaf. They're more focused with the games, with the in-game performance. The in-game performance regarding netcode, hit detection. This is a bullshit argument, because typically what happens is, say if we do manage to fix this game's gameplay, okay, it's technical issues, we need to address the gameplay issues. What exactly that means, in terms of gameplay, BF6 is fine. it is what it is. You've got sliding, vaulting, sprinting. The defib works like you're fucking baking cakes, like throwing out cakes. Like you're fucking throwing out cakes. The gameplay in BF6 is what it is at this point. You cannot change gameplay. This is just a very strange take I've seen, which I briefly wanted to touch on. If you're pumping out content like this, DICE and EA see this, they're likely to treat these people as spiritual advisors. So they're going to take on this feedback and navigate the game in directions it probably doesn't need to go in, and likely sabotage this game. If we were to focus on gameplay issues, that would mean they could potentially fix all those bugs, hit detection, netcode issues, desync, etc. The problem with that is once you fix that and then you have to update the game again, say Season 3, for example, you could potentially break the game once again, and you'd have to readjust, desync, fix hit detection, netcode issues, etc. That's just the way these games work. That's been going on since BF3, BF4. If you update one thing, there's a chance you could break it in the next update. This is typically why they update netcode, all these technical issues last after they've rolled out the core content, which are the maps, modes, etc. Now, that being said, there's this really obvious push for more infantry maps. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you in the next one.